Member Cowichan Valley.
Thank you. Thank you. I too want to join with the others in acknowledging the amazing staff that work for the ministry, and I'm sure all of the challenges that they have in this day and age are unique. I did want to add that my experience with the Timber Supply Committee that went around the province, while it was unique, it was also to me encouraging the fact that 4 Liberals, 3 NDP could actually come to an agreement and forward that on to the government of British Columbia as recommendations. I do want to add that I feel that those recommendations have been cherry-picked, and that that I was shocked and surprised. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that the budget was actually cut as a result of the outcome of the recommendations, some of which were dealing with things like the need for additional forest stewardship and planting, dealing with not sufficiently restocked areas, that kind of thing. And yet the government chose to cut the budgets. Again, I get that. That's the nature of the government of today, is to choose to cut no matter what, kind of a swashbuckling approach to slash and whatever is in the way of getting to what they want, and that's a budget that, as they call it, balances. But I do want to insist that the people of British Columbia, and certainly in forest communities, are not well served by a plan that ultimately is not doing the work that's necessary, even agreed by 4 Liberals and 3 NDP when we traveled the province and saw an area, 18 million hectares in the province of British Columbia with dead and dying pine. And we know that there are continuing disease challenges, that kind of thing, but we also know that there could be a lot more done in terms of dealing with forest health. And I think generations today, certainly forest workers today, that are facing challenges with layoffs and mill closures, I don't see a plan to engage forest workers and forest communities in actually renewing the forests of British Columbia, making them safer, whether it's dealing with fire issues, helping deal with all of the huge volumes of wood, down and dying trees, or even the areas that are difficult to get at. There is no real plan to connect displaced forest workers with what I see are tremendous opportunities, huge opportunities. Back when I started in the forest industry in 1970, and I guess I have to put the minister through this again, is that back in 1970, when I first started at the Ubo sawmill, I must say that I never imagined myself here, that it's an interesting path that after years of involvement working on everything from the chip plant and cleanup to, I remember most fondly the years spent in the veneer plant cutting great big fir peelers. And it was great work. It was dignified work, working with ordinary working class type people, and I learned from that that there were, particularly from the experiences of Ubo, all of the changes. The one thing that we can take for certain is change. And dramatic changes I've seen just in my lifetime in the forest industry, everything from that veneer plant that I once worked in that I'm sure at the time I thought would be there forever, closed. The veneer plant closed first, lost 84 jobs. We then went down to an A mill and a B mill. Those mills soon went from what used to be 3 A mill shifts and 2 B mill shifts down to either or, one mill or the other working first 3 shifts, then down to 2. Of course, that wasn't economically sustainable. And eventually we saw those mills close. Sadly, those mills were operated by a private landowner who saw the advantages of exporting logs and laying off the masses of people, first at Yubo, and then it was Fletcher Challenge, then Timber West, that closed the Elk Falls mill. And now we get to, still when I go back to my community, there's a certain part of me that twinges every time I drive down the road and see those logging trucks headed for the export market. So I want you to understand that when I speak passionately about issues like that, I think you would understand me a lot better and where I'm coming from and where that passion comes from if you could spend those years with me working, you know, taking your lunch box to work every day, working with those same people day in and day out, first as I say, in the chip plant and then in the A mill and the B mill, also in the veneer plant for years on end, and getting to know and remember those guys. And then also having to deal, I actually represented the workers at the time as president of the local. We had 3,000 to 4,000 workers, but I had to deal with the mill closure, and it was very painful, very difficult experience. And, you know, there are workers today going through those same experiences, whether it's in Quesnel or in Houston, that are now looking at the end of their futures, and it's difficult stuff. So again, and this is important, what we've done is focused on you know, the start with the budget questions, and so I want to carry on in that vein, but I did want to emphasize for the minister that this is important work that we're doing, not just for British Columbians for today, but for the future. And as a former forest worker myself, I'm both in awe that I get to stand here and say anything about that at all, but I'm also glad that I can convey that on behalf of the forest workers that I knew and worked with, they would want us to do more in terms of planning for the future of their communities and the communities where their families live, work, and play. There's a lot of feeling that we could do better, and so together we must find a way to do that. My question, Minister, is during the 2013 estimates debate, the minister forecasted an average percentage increase in stumpage for the interior of $2 and a more modest increase for the coast. What are the adjusted average percentage increases in stumpage for the interior and for the coast in 2014-15 and in 2015-16?
Thank you, Chair. So the average forecast stumpage rates to be billed for 14-15 for the coast for the majors $3.80, and for 15-16 $4.73 per cubic meter. For the interior, for the same time period, 14-15 $10.87, and 15-16 $11.28 per cubic meter. I think you may have asked for percentages. I haven't forecast percent. I have given you the actual rates. We can quickly do the math if you need the percentages.
Member.
Almost seems like it should be backwards to me, but as a coastal guy, but anyway. So for the coast, 380 and 473?
That's what I have.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, for average revenue forecast stumpage rates.
Member.
Wow. Okay, popular perception is that the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations relies wholly on revenue from forests, and for the last 12 years has not generated revenue sufficient to cover needed expenditures on the land. I would like to explore the truthfulness of this perception. The 2014 estimates before us detail the expenses by ministry and revenues by source, not by ministry. So the revenues we have been discussing so far in this debate are from forests largely derived from stumpage and from BC timber sales. Over the past 6 or so years, expenditures for the ministries closely match forest revenues. My question for the minister is, what is the real all-inclusive revenue for the ministry for fiscal years 2012, 2013, 2014, or 2013-14, 2014-15, and 2015-16?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. We're just getting the information for 2012, and we'll have it shortly. I'll provide it as soon as it's received. But for 13-14, 1.266 million. For 14-15, estimates 1.409 million. For 15-16, 1.432 million. And for 16-17, 1.394 million.
Member.
Thank you. So given the ministry's total revenues listed on page 28 of the ministry's 2014-15 service plan and the corresponding ministry expenses, 622 million, 591 million, 592 million, and 603 million listed in the estimates before us, the government has chosen to invest in the land about 45%. On average of the ministry's present annual revenues down 8% from the 53% on average invested in 2013-14. With the stumpage rates and resulting forest revenue forecast to rise in fiscal year 2014-15, could the minister explain his decision to invest in the land, 8% less on average in 2014-15 than the ministry did in 2013-14, when the need has never been greater, especially in the interior of the province.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And just before respond to the specific question, just want to provide the information that was requested for 2012, which is 1.061 billion. And I should correct for the record as well with the previous answer that I gave with the forecast for 13-14 and estimates for 14-15, 15-16, and 16-17. I think I said 1.394 million in each case, which should be 1.394 billion, just to make sure it's correct on the record. So thank you for that. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the investments that are the revenue that's derived from the forest sector and across the ministry in other areas of revenue that make up the revenue portion of our ministry, what's important to recognize is that these revenues are part of contributing to important social programs, education, healthcare, social services within the provincial government, and the important focus on ensuring that we have a balanced budget. So it's making the decisions about the basis between what is invested within our ministry operations and programs, and the important contribution that the resource sector makes to the broader imperatives of social services, education, and health in the province.
Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the 2013 estimates debate, the loyal opposition pointed out a number of areas in which the government had the opportunity to increase revenue to the Crown. Subsequent media exposure of the giveaway water rental rates to oil and gas companies and to Nestle Corporation underscored the point for water. During the 2013 estimates debate, the minister provided the House with a breakdown in revenue estimates for other resources as follows. Water resources, 482 million. Wildlife Act fees and licenses, 20.2 million. Motor Vehicle All-Terrain Act licenses and permits, $19,000. Land registry fees, $25,000. And land tenure revenue and other income and interest earned in relation to those, $123 million. Mr. Speaker, is the forecasted revenue from water resources for 2013-14 still $482 million? And what is the estimated revenue for 2014-2015?
Minister.
So thank you, Chair. So the 2013-14 revised forecast for water revenue, $414 million. For 14-15, $401 million.
Member.
Mr. Speaker, given that the statutory law requires the government to act in the financial interests of the Crown, would the Minister please explain why these estimated revenues for water resources are not greater than they are?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So as the members will know, BC Hydro rates, BC Hydro makes up roughly 90% of the water revenues received from major producers, and the corporation's power generation is impacted by the previous year's snowpack and rainfall, and as a result, the revenues fluctuate from year to year, and also, as I'm advised, this is based on the previous year's utilization. So it lags from year to year. So that will explain the variations in the revenue forecasts.